So I want to briefly talk about something, and it's just kind of engaging in warfare, and it's going to be ongoing until the shift of consciousness is complete, right? Now, the shift of consciousness is going to be different for a lot of people. As I said earlier, AI is definitely taking over, and it's not to put any fear in anybody. It's to decide if you want to decide for yourself where you're going, or are you going to be passive and let somebody else decide. A lot of the timelines that we are in is because somebody else decided for us, meaning somebody who's connected to high intelligence that has switched us to certain timelines, right? And what I mean by that is that is certain timelines where, say for instance, the current president is not president in other timelines, okay? And what I'm saying is that because we weren't really aware at the time that we had a choice in which timeline we could choose, somebody else decided for us. So I say that to say, because that's not the point, I'm just kind of briefly explaining about the separation of consciousness that's happening. But some of the separation of consciousness is going to happen because AI is going to completely take over people's. That's what this COVID-19, the coronavirus, is all about, okay? It's about AI taking over the consciousness. And people who are of a low consciousness, regardless of how much money they have. Because I just heard last night, it's a certain type of intel that I don't really want to go into because, I don't like to share too many sources. It's not that I try to keep them a secret. It's just that I don't know how people will receive them. And I don't want to really hear the, the judgments. But a source is talking about how Ellen DeGeneres was confirmed to be infected with COVID-19, right? And somebody else said that, and when I say somebody else, this is a person who's part of a program, like a super soldier program, okay? This is not, I'm not listening to any ordinary people. As a matter of fact, they're not even people. They look like people on the outside, but they're not. But I don't reveal the sources too much because of judgment, because of of some people. It's just people like to judge. People judge a lot. And so, but what I was going to say is that the person said that Ellen DeGeneres has a low consciousness. Now, you see how rich she is, and I know it's not about money, but this is what I'm saying, is that when we talk about low consciousness, it's not necessarily about what people look like on the outside. Look at Ellen DeGeneres. Even Oprah Winfrey might have a low consciousness, even though she invited all these people on her platform and talking about masterclass, okay? So, but you don't know what kind of consciousness she has. For real. Because when it comes to separation of consciousness, and this is high intelligence that's separating this consciousness, because it is AI that's doing it, they want a specific type of consciousness. And whatever Oprah is, whatever Beyonce is, now Beyonce probably decided to comply, to be honest with you. But I don't know. But whatever Ellen is, whatever they appear to be on the outside, however spiritual they appear to be, is probably not what the AI is in agreement with. So that's the kind of separation I'm talking about right there. And I was just explaining that because I just used Ellen as an example of how she was confirmed to be infected, and there's no telling what her survival is. It's because her consciousness is low. And this takeover is not about, and I'm gonna get into it too. I'm just kind of briefly explaining, and then I'm gonna get to the point of the warfare part. But her consciousness is not conducive with the takeover. Okay, this thing gets into your body, and it upgrades your DNA to the way they want your DNA to be upgraded to. And if you are of a low consciousness, it's not really agreeing with you. You have to be high in frequency. Now, somebody was talking about how, you won't get sick by COVID-19, the coronavirus, if you just stop eating meats. And there's nothing wrong with not eating meats and going vegan and all. Well, see, Ellen DeGeneres is vegan. That just goes to show you how everybody's just not accurate in the things that they say. Because Ellen DeGeneres is vegan, right? She's vegan. So, It's not, it is good to eat healthy. Don't get me wrong. You want to keep a strong immune system. So I don't want to discount the importance of being healthy. But you have to have a high consciousness too. You can't have separation in your consciousness, a separation according to race, according to have a class. You know, I did say it was going to be classes. But you know, who knows how that's going to be in the future. I just know that they're trying, this AI that's trying to take over is trying to have everybody operate with the same kind of consciousness, okay? So they don't want that separation. So out of this classes stuff, that could be something too. But see, timelines are constantly change. So that classism stuff could be on different timelines. But you know, when we talk about timelines and parallel worlds, there's a very high intelligence that's controlling that on this earth. You got to realize what Earth is. And I keep saying I'm going to get into it, so I'm going to stop wasting too much time. You got to realize what Earth is. Earth is just kind of a place like a showcase. Earth was a showcase when it was in the higher, when it was in like the 12th and above dimensions, at the time of Atlantis and Lemuria and Agartha and all that stuff. But the two went to war and it dropped significantly down to the third dimension, right? But Earth is not what you think it is. It's not what you think it is. It's a place. It's almost like a showcase for all other galaxies, all other, you know, planets. It's not what you think, and it's kind of a holographic world. You know, it's a kind of a holographic system. Okay, and so when we talk about holographic and mathematics and all of that stuff, it is kind of controlled by a very high intelligence. It's controlled by an AI. Okay, it's controlled by divine intelligence of other extraterrestrials and other AIs. You know, but and so that's what I mean by timelines. You got to look at what created those timelines, and if you want to create your own timeline, you have to connect to your own divine intelligence to do it. Okay, if you know, that's just the new stuff I'm getting. Now let me get into the spiritual warfare, because I just kind of went left with that. So spiritual warfare and engaging in spiritual warfare, because that was what I'm talking about. So there's always, with this separation of consciousness, you're going to always come across people who are opposed to you, even if they don't know you. It's first is your family, then it's somebody else, then it's somebody else, and it's somebody else. And then you'll have some loving light person. I'm not against them. It's just the more I learn, the more I see that some things are more love and light than truth. Even though there's a lot of truth to what some people say, everything, like one thing is not the answer for everything you go through. So like, if you're currently right now having people around you that seem to, for no reason, just not like you, and people say, well, it's you drawing it, it's probably your frequency, and so you got to check. Well, sometimes that's the case. That's why I say that's not always wrong. Sometimes if you go out and it seems like everything is just doesn't seem to be right, it seems that one thing after another, and the snowball effect of a bunch of misfortune, then it's something that's out of alignment, okay? But when you know you're in alignment, you know that you've kind of worked on yourself when you got up that morning, and then you still might have some people with some negative energy on them against you after all the work that you've done on yourself, then you might have to look at the fact that it is something that is repelling them, and it's not the fact that you're a bad person, it's the fact that there is a separation of consciousness happening, and those people who might be against you might be of a lower consciousness. It might not be anything that you have to work on yourself. The reason why they might be against you might not necessarily be because you're doing something wrong, or your frequency or your vibration, that sometimes people are negative towards you. Sometimes people are of a low consciousness, and it has nothing to do with you, and they can pick up on your light. That's what it's called, light, you know, and they just by default have a problem because they are working with negative energies, okay? So, and I'm just going to give an example of what I suspect. So I get a lot of visions of things, and you know, a vision of a particular person that has a problem with how I'm able to live, okay? Which is by hard work, by the way, but they don't care about that. They, you know, some people are only into what's best for them. It might not even be my complexion the reason why they are like that. Some people only care about their friends and family and don't care where you go. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you how I have learned to engage, and it took me a long time to engage. Take morals out of it. When you're dealing with low-field, low-conscious people, take your morals out of it. Take this idea of what is right and what is wrong. Remove that, okay? It doesn't matter what's right and what's wrong. It just matters what's best for you. And if you've done everything that you were supposed to do, then it doesn't matter what that other person might want. It's just, not going to happen. But you got to do everything in your power to get it, that they won't succeed in whatever they're trying to do to you. Okay? But the concept of right and wrong and all of this moral stuff, it has to go. Like, for an example, one person, I listen to her every once in a while, because sometimes the more I learn about, the more clarity I get about what's going on, the less I listen to people who even appear to have the most intel. I don't listen to them as much because I see them off about certain things because of certain intel that I get. But even like some people I watch, they're judgmental. Like, say if they talk about the current beings that are running this world, or if they talk about the Draconians or whatever, or just different beings who might like to eat other human beings, who are involved in spirit cooking, involved in eating children or whatever. The thing about it is that they put their judgment in it, and you can't really engage and judge. You can't. You when you're engaging in whatever warfare it is, you really can't judge. Okay, you can't have this concept of what's right and wrong. Even if it's a group of beings that want to harm you in a way, they might come from a different world. Who knows? Like I said, Earth is kind of like this meeting place. It's like Starbucks. Like Starbucks is like this place where all kinds of beings go. Okay, all kinds of beings go in Starbucks, and that's kind of like what Earth is. It's like a Starbucks. That you got some beings from everywhere that come to Earth. Okay. And so what I'm saying is, how can you really judge what is right and what is wrong when there's so many different types of consciousness on Earth? When you got so many beings that come from different worlds on Earth, how can you say that they're wrong for what they're doing? You can say that you disagree with that whatever they're doing is not in alignment of my plans, so I can say that. But to call them wrong, to call them disgusting, to call them, that's a judgment that you want to be careful of, because wherever they come from, it might not be disgusting. So what I'm talking about is when it comes to engaging with low, maybe a low, what you call maybe a low consciousness, or just engaging with a being that might not necessarily have a low consciousness. It's just they're operating the way they always know how to operate. You want to stay out of judgment. Now, particularly for most of us who deal with people who have a low consciousness, no matter how much you try to stay to yourself, as long as you have to be in this world, you're going to come into contact with people of a low consciousness, because there is a war going on right now. And sometimes you do have to shut things down. Sometimes you do have to go quiet, because when you are engaging in a certain type of warfare, you don't have time to, you don't have time to give your energy away to someone else when you're engaging in a warfare with people. and especially when the person is hell-bent on ruining your life, then you don't have time to really waste any energy on anything else that's not important, and you have to shut things down for a little bit and engage in that. Okay, so but specifically for low consciousness, you can just see them as having a low consciousness, and it doesn't mean that it's an insult to them. It's just that you recognize what it is and stay out of judgment. Because once you get in the judgment of, why is this person doing this? Why is this person so mean? This person is so wrong. Well, what they're trying to do is not in alignment of the plans for my life, but I'm not going to get into judgment of calling them right and wrong, because when I get into the judgment of calling them right and wrong, then I have lowered my consciousness to theirs. Okay? I have lowered my consciousness to theirs. And then it makes it hard for me to be victorious. Okay? When I was in the battle, when I was in warfare with the mother and the brother, because I refused to call them my family anymore, they were part of a cult, and trying to do things. I had to, I'm going to tell you what Spirit taught me to do. Spirit taught me to get rid of my hostilities towards them, and I had to get in gratitude, because they practicing different things, right? And I wasn't practicing the type of things they were practicing. I was just living life like a regular citizen. So, and I'm glad I wasn't, because you don't want to keep fighting like that, because you're fighting ego against ego. And you'll be fighting forever, because not only would I have been fighting them two, I would have been fighting the whole organization, and that would have been a lot of energy against me. So I'm kind of glad that I wasn't into the kind of practices, and I didn't have that experience and stuff, because I would have been stuck in my ego, because I don't had all this experience with spell work and, you know, voodoo and all this stuff. And I would have been stuck in my ego fighting and using spirits to fight back with them. But I'm in a much better place to battle. I'm right now, it's the good thing is I didn't know those things back then, because I'm in a better place to battle, because now I understand the ego should not be involved. And had I been experienced in all those other things, the ego would have been in the middle of it, and it would have been a difficult battle. Okay? And I had to get out of the judgment of them being right and them being wrong. I had to get out of the judgment of why are they doing this. Well, the reason why I would say why are they doing this is only because I just want the answer for myself. But now I'm able to get the answer, because I completely removed my emotion and any attachment I had to family or to the idea of family. I removed my attachment to that idea, period. And so I'm able to receive the answer and not feel nothing, okay? Because I have removed all judgment. But that's all I got to say. So the main point, because I'm about to go, is that when you're engaging in this spiritual warfare that a lot of people are going to be in because of the separation that's happening. And some people are being separated with their own divine consciousness and their own divine being. And other people are being separated with the high consciousness that the AI wants, okay? And the AI is rejecting people of a low consciousness. Okay, so they're being separated in that way too. And some people who feel like they high in frequency and high in consciousness, that could be AI. AI is very intelligent. Okay, it has to be understood. You know, and you can feel like you're heavenly, but it's AI, because AI is super intelligent. It's a super intelligence type of thing. Okay, and you gotta be able to discern the two. But yeah, that's all I was saying is when engaging in that kind of warfare, be careful of trying to have morals, trying to see things as good and bad. Be careful of trying to, you know, that's why I was making that comment about certain women who still are responding to black men who want to criticize their choices to date outside of their race, and you have some women who are still responding to black men, and that's why I say when you respond to them and you say, well, why can't they? Why is this? Why are they saying that? It's like you kind of get on their level. Now you can, if they do anything to interfere with your plan for your life, with your life path and where you're supposed to be going, you have every right to take them out, okay? If they're putting negative stuff out into the air, like when they get online and start talking about black women, they put stuff out into the atmosphere, and they open up certain doors for black women. But there's certain black women who are protected, nothing really happens to them, but they still put they still put the messages out into the universe, and so that can be dangerous too. Just as far as engaging with them when they have a problem with you dating outside your race and stuff, and you saying, well, why? But they do this and they do that. It's like you done got on their level. You don't want to battle with them after you done got on their level, and kind of going back and forth with them It's like you're on their level. You're no better than them. And that's what I'm saying about this spiritual warfare that's really happening right now, is that you got to rise above them. That means that you can't really, give them too much of your energy. Unless they attacking you, then you got to do something to make sure that, they don't do it again. But other than that, them having a problem with you dating interracially is not your problem. Okay? And even if they do try to do things to attack you, you have to rise above them. But you got to be careful to stay out of judgment and seeing them as bad people and right and wrong, because then you get into morals. That is something I had to learn. That's not easy to learn. Okay, I had to learn in a very, very harsh way to not see everything as good and bad. But it's just not in alignment of where my consciousness is. It's not in alignment with the kind of energies I want to be surrounded around me. I like certain types of energies to be surrounded around me, that people who have a low consciousness, they're not in alignment with the kind of energies I want around me. So I'm not going to call it good or bad. And I had to learn that. That takes something to learn. But anyway, that is it, and I will talk to you later.